I think we can get started. Hi everyone, I'm Aviral, and I welcome you to TrustInSoft's webinar on mastering ISO 26262 compliance with TrustInSoft Analyzer. This webinar will be hosted by our customer services manager, Roland Dudemaine, and we're very excited to have you on board. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping notes for everyone to keep in mind. Your mic and your video has been disabled, but we encourage you to ask questions using the Q&A tab at the end of the webinar. Additionally, we will also be recording this session, which will be made available to all of you on demand afterwards. And with that, Roland, I'll hand over the floor to you and you can get started.
Thank you, Ariel. As Ariel said, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A and we will answer them or try to answer them at the end. I'm Roland Dudemaine, Customer Services Manager at TrustInSoft. And today we'll be talking about TrustInSoft Analyzer and in the automotive field. Let me move on to the next slide. Regarding the agenda, I'll explain a little bit about the TrustInSoft background, the analyzer itself, what it is, what it brings, and the unique points about it. And then a perspective of how to apply it in the context of 26262. And since 26262 is about automotive, also automotive spice, and how that can help you to actually go faster or better or both in the development of your project. TrustInSoft is not a new company. The company has been in existence for 11 years. It's based in France and out of French research agency research. Its purpose is to work on real life code. And then as a consequence, we have worldwide customer base in all the main three continents, United States, Europe, and Asia, even though the company is based in France. We have offices and colleagues in China and in the US. And as varied, we have customers in all the fields where it is important to have reliable code that may mean also a safety or security certification, or sometimes both. And so that includes automotive, but also companies doing semiconductors for automotive and other sectors, and any and many other critical sectors. Focusing a little bit more about automotive. Automotive is an evolving scheme in terms landscape in terms of software. What we see and what's actually very well known is that there are more and more safety and reliability requirements. This is not a new game in automotive. Everyone expects the automotive to work, but as the systems become more and more complex and the software increases, it becomes an increasingly difficult topic. Meanwhile, the car is becoming connected, and that means that there is a cybersecurity threat along with it. And becoming more connected, the autonomous and connected car is a really big challenge. To frame that, countries and international regulation entities are setting up standards. ISO 26262 is one of them for safety, but there are others for cybersecurity, like 21434. And all that goes along with increasing cost and development time, and that means that everything becomes more challenging, and it have to be clever to be able to do better within the same amount of money and time. That means higher risks sometimes, and it's important to be able to manage those risks. Totally separately, TrustInSoft has as its main product TrustInSoft Analyzer, and TrustInSoft Analyzer is a hybrid code analyzer that brings together static and dynamic analysis along with formal methods. The formal methods aspects allow us to allow that tool to analyze your code on your premises and evaluate if there are and do some evaluate the code along with the data and the input vectors that you give it to verify it, and applies some abstract interpretation concepts to be able to um, figure out if the evaluation of your code is going to be okay, or if there are some undefined behaviors and basically illegal behaviors in your code. While doing that, it is actually bringing also a mathematical analysis to it. So when the tool is figuring out that there is nothing bad happening to it, it can also prove some properties of your code, which is quite important to be able to not only prove that there's no defect, but also prove that the code is fundamentally correct. One of the aspects of it is the power of the formal methods. When you do typical testing with normal unit testing, integration testing, or whatever kind of testing or even analysis that you do, um, what happens is that you will typically do testing on a target or in a simulator and give some fixed input values. That means that you will voluntarily test some branches of your application. And while doing so, you have to make sure that normally you test all the branches, but it's an extremely difficult game to be able to cover everything. But what happens is that in real life, you, because of time, money, or other constraints, um, there are often missed code paths. And those missed code paths can have real world impact. And if you see here a list of 3 issues that have happened, um, and that could apply inside automotive, like Heartbleed related to SSL, or outside of the automotive world. But there are plenty of them that could apply, that could have an impact in terms of cybersecurity, but also safety sometimes, with the last one. So this analyzer can reuse that kind of analysis, but it can go further and do some more exhaustive and generalized testing. So instead of giving single values, you can give ranges of values, and that will allow the analyzer to go through multiple paths and ideally all of the paths of your code to be able to evaluate and verify that your code is correct. What's interesting is when you apply formal methods correctly, that can ensure an exhaustive bug detection across all the code path. And while doing that, it will raise um, a very low amount of false positives because it can be capable to evaluate correctly all of your application. And when no false positive and no true positives are reported anymore, then it can bring further mathematical proof. So TrustInSoft Analyzer actually helps you to focus on the bugs that actually matter. And the bugs that matter may be different depending on the company, but the, of course, the ones that you do usually that do functional verification and test that your APIs or your integrated system is behaving correctly, they're really important. And for a large part of it, this TrustInSoft Analyzer, or TIS Analyzer in short, can actually partially verify them, but it will also help you find the more difficult ones that are often unnoticed, the side effects that were not intended in your application. When this is happening, the TIS-analyzer will track them and will report them as what is called undefined behaviors. And common examples of them would be buffer overflows, or value overflow, integer overflow, and items like that. That could happen in corner cases or in nominal cases. When it is doing so, it's also doing it in a manner that is sound. Sound here means that it's applying a verifiable logic to understand what is going on in your code, and the consequence of it is there are no false negatives. And that's quite important because when there are no false negatives and few false positives, the result is that the user of the tool can focus on the real issues instead of going through a typical static analyzer, which will report you thousands or hundreds of issues where maybe one or two will actually hide a real bug. But in our case, it will report only the real ones that are relevant. Um, and if you do it well, meaning if you give it enough inputs and enough combinatorial tests, then you can do a complete coverage of your code. Um, Even if it is not complete, then at least you can measure it, which is also quite useful. In the best case, it can reach 100%. In reality, in real life, it's extremely rare to reach 100%, but you can reach whatever you can actually reach from the real tree. Um, on top of giving those, doing the analysis and giving you those reports, there is also an interactive interface to be able to interactively track the values and investigate what's going on. So when there is an issue, you can investigate and go back to the root cause. And last one, it's doing this analysis in the context of the architecture that you want to use for your physical target. And the configuration of the target is pretty easy. You can just say that you want to build for ARM 64-bit, ARM 32-bit, and switching to another architecture is just one change of a compilation flag, of of an analysis flag. And so we support RISC-V, x86, and all the common architectures now. Additionally, you can have specific memory mappings that could be described, even though in principle, the tool works on symbolic addresses, meaning that any buffer overflow will be detected on the variable that is overflowed and not on an arbitrary address that is hard to track. So now if you want to use it, then where is it actually usable? So this is where the typical triple V that is visible in ISO 26262 and also automotive spice and so on. Of course, we focus on software. And within software, we actually focus specifically and we can help you with the software unit verification and software integration and verification in general. Whether it's a unit or an integrated system is your decision. Of course, because it can be integrated in as a quick verification item, it can help you feedback very quickly to the design and implementation. But mostly, this is part 6, section 8, 9, and 10. One way for many automotive customers to apply processes that are valid for development of ISO 26262 applications is automotive spice, or in short, ASPICE. And here we recognize the system V, the bigger V, and the smaller V here for software. When this happens, it's the typical way is that there are bugs that are going to be found at every level. Of course, software unit verification, but then also um, later bugs. These later bugs are costing incrementally more time and money to figure them out when they are found late and up in the V's here. However, because TrustInSoft Analyzer can help go to the bottom of your code, it will also allow you to investigate the corner cases of your code and find also the ones that would be found at the end here when your software is deployed in the cyber physical system in totally um, uh, uh, unspecified, sometimes unspecified situations, and these could be detected here at the software unit verification or integration verification. And this is quite important because by doing this analysis and exhaustive study of your code earlier on, the number of bugs remaining in the later parts are going to be much fewer and wider. And so that actually saves a lot of time and money in doing robust software. And in another way, reducing the risk. So how is it actually applied for our customers? As the title says, it's an incremental journey to reach a maximum safety and security. Like Automotive Spice advises, it's a continuous improvement. So the usual way that our customers start is to reuse existing tests. Then what they do is instantly by reusing those existing tests, which is not always possible, but in many cases you can reuse for a good part of them. You can it will replay the same test, and from the perspective of the developer, it will be like a simulator, but it will also detect the unintended side effects, the undefined behaviors. Um, And that's already bringing you return on investment at this level. Once you do that, it will also bring some measurement about how much you have covered. And quickly, you can realize that you can do better with less tests. Better with less tests means creating specific analysis, and in your case, specific tests that will verify the function of your software instead of giving it single values like one, minimum, maximum, median, -1, which are typical good ways to do input testing, you can actually also give generalized input. And then for example, with this analyzer, there are helper functions to help you describe that you want to give all the positive integers or a series of values that would be still fixed, but much more generalized than single tests. And because the analyzer can manage those ranges of inputs as one test, then that means you could really do a simpler traceability to your requirements and more extensive verification of your code. And again, that's coming with zero false negatives. So when it reports something, then it's actually valid to investigate and figure out why there was that issue reported. From the perspective of the certification, that's helping with code and data flow integrity. Few customers are interested in not just verifying through regular testing, but in addition to actually give a positive proof of correctness, mathematical proof of correctness. And our tool, TrustInSoft, is capable of doing that. If you don't stop at making specification of your software in terms of human language, but you use formal specification, and in our case, this is comments in the C or C++ code, then in a very formalized way, then the analyzer can verify if the statements that you put in the formal specification are correct. And then not only you can verify that you have an exhaustive coverage of your code, but you can also verify specific properties of your code. That can be at the API level, that can be to verify invariance, that some value is always positive or some array is always initialized, even though you don't use it. Any kind of specification that you want to insert. But again, there are very few customers using this because that goes into a much more fine-grained analysis of your code. So most of what we see is that people either continue to do single value tests or quickly they go to generalized testing, which is what the main value of the tool brings to do exhaustive testing. We're talking about ISO 26262 in this webinar, so it's important that the tool is ready for use, and it is. We have already qualified the tool so that it can be used for all ASIL levels and at the level TCL3. TCL3 is the highest level. Even though it is a verification tool, and you could consider that you only need TCL2, which is the median level for compliance in the standard, you can actually consider it as reliable or more reliable at the highest level, similar to a compiler, similar to other tools that will produce a strong effect on your target. Currently, we cover all the variants of the C language, C90, C99, C11, even C18 if you want, for the standard analysis levels. And the main property that it does is detect undefined behavior in the large sense, meaning that if your code will end up causing buffer overflows in the large sense and you have done sufficient testing, then we actually claim that we will always detect them or confirm the absence of them. The initial version that was certified was the 145.2, and recently we announced our latest version, 147, and there's a separate webinar for that. We will certify that in the coming month, and a safety manual is available to our customers so you know how to use this tool properly in the context of a safety certification with 26262. So again, back to the more detailed question version of how do you use it? Well, this is where it becomes interesting. The tool can bring some exhaustiveness in the verification, but it can cover a number of activities as well. And when I say cover, it will contribute to a number of activities. Of course, you still need someone to be able to conduct the analysis correctly, but at least it will help with a number of activities. And I will go again in more details in this. But what's interesting is that while using the tool, you can take that decision. It's down to you in the end, of course, to establish the process like you want. But you can decide that all of these activities that you see here can be applied uniquely with the TrustInSoft Analyzer and without involving a physical target. That can help you to start those activities even before the hardware is available. And that can help you to start earlier, go quicker, and do all of these activities at the same time, because just the verification activity will contribute, will have the analyzer contribute to those. So concretely, if you go in a little bit more in details, we have the analyzer will contribute to the static code analysis, to a number of activities here, like range check of inputs and output data, because the very function of the analyzer, if you use it in the generalized mode that I mentioned earlier, is to do range checking and range analysis of the data that flows through your code. Detection of data errors similarly will be detected. We have another part of our toolchain, which is this MISRA, and it is separate from the analyzer, but it is included in our toolchain to help you also comply with MISRA and do some more strictly compliance-oriented activities. Then when you look, and these previous ones apply to all ASIL levels, so actually QM up to ASIL D. When you go to start in specific ASIL levels, because it will do an analysis and understand how your code, how the data flows through your code, it will obviously store and understand which path of your code it actually covered, and that can help you in ASIL A for statement coverage, in B and C for branch coverage, and above MCDC as well. It will detect when you use a variable that uninitialized. So when you have that rule initialization of variables is obviously part of the main of the basic behavior of the analyzer. Interface test is what you do actually to make sure that you test sufficiently, but you can use the analyzer to run those tests in a good way. And well, again, for all the activities here, down to control flow analysis and data flow analysis, which are actually pretty complex activities to drive. The TrustInSoft Analyzer will give you, by definition, by the very basic way that the analyzer works, a guarantee that these are done correctly. So in a way, you can save a lot of testing effort here because your test can be run with the analyzer before the hardware is available. You can run it in the cloud on your machine if you want to, of course, but also in a CI, in the cloud, in daily works without any constraint in terms of hardware availability, because you just need a regular machine, Linux machine, to be able to run it. Um, you can reduce some hardware in the loop tests. So again, speaking of hardware, um, after the hardware becomes available, there's always a constraint in terms of availability, and you can do that verification, that partial verification, without the real hardware and without a simulator either. If you want to do it on multi-platforms, that's also very easy to do. So once you have your analysis campaign established, you can actually just duplicate it and change the architecture and run it immediately. Again, because of the foundation of the tool, about the mathematical analysis and the way that it works, there are no false negatives, and the depth of the analysis will lead you, once the analysis is configured correctly, to detect all of the issues that are in your code, and that helps with increased safety and security confidence. Um, Again, because of the foundation and the way the tool works, it will help you, it will raise much fewer alarms. And however, those will be pretty important to look at. And that means less justification effort, less developer fatigue, less, oh yeah, this tool, I run it through this tool, but there are too many issues, and I just forget them, because I've done the report and that's it. No, with that tool, well, of course, you can always ignore the issues, but you can actually um, uh, trust the tool, and then actually solve all of the issues in your code. And in the end, that leads you to a lower waste of time to develop your software. And again, because you can, once you've done insufficient verification, that will give you a code coverage measurement on the way, and it will easily help you to confirm that you have done a sufficient work on your code, especially when you need to do MCDC. It will help you not only to observe which path of the code are reached, but when you use the interactive GUI, also to figure out which values are there at each path. So saying the same thing in a more automotive oriented, um, TrustInSoft Analyzer is an ASIL D qualified product that can help for a variety of activities. It can help also with compliance for Cert C and MISRA C. It has already been qualified, and so you can use it for any level of safety in the context of ISO 26262, from QM, quality managed, up to ASIL D, which is the highest. It will allow you to do exhaustive analysis, and because you can do input generalization, you can actually verify even more than what you could do on a real target, and that helps with robustness verification. Um, by its very design, it will detect side effects, well, the normal effects of your code, but also sometimes the unintended side effect. And uh, then that will help to find problems undetected with traditional tests. And we're happy to do a demo if you want to. And what's interesting is that you don't need to change totally your process immediately. You can introduce and start to use it gradually to be able to apply it. Of course, the more you use the tool, the more you save in terms of global effort. Um, and in a way, what our automotive customers tell us is that it actually brings significant cost savings for their ISO 26262 certification. I didn't mention it, but because it's obvious for us, but the tool can be integrated in a CI so that it's possible to run it daily or anytime the code changes. This is the end of the presentation part of the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the Q&A section. And we'll wait a few minutes if you have some more questions, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Roland. As Roland mentioned, if anyone has any questions, please post them in the Q&A section and we'll try to address all of them. So Roland, we have one question. What specific features of TrustInSoft's tools contribute to optimizing testing efforts and enhancing the efficiency and reliability of safety-critical automotive applications?
Okay, that's a very thorough question. Uh, it's so the one way it works is that, again, you can tell the developers to continue to focus on doing testing linked to specification. This is the usual way to work, and that can remain. However, while using those tests within the tool, you can make less tests in a generalized way. And by just using that tool, it will give you a number of activities done on the way. That data flow activity, the code flow the analysis, and the code coverage, all of those will be actually done at the same time. So, in fact, um, the, the, the the analyzer, the core of the analysis, and the reports that are provided along are, as a combination, the where the big savings are. And from the métier, the business logic perspective, the developers can still continue to do it in a normal way.
Okay, thank you. And we have another question. What kind of support and resources does TrustInSoft offer to help companies ensure they are using the analyzer effectively for ISO 26262 compliance?
So we're making a point to actually not only train our customers but provide good technical support um, for any of their questions. And if they need to, we're happy to have a discussion about the process level, because where the big savings are is not just using the tool and finding the bugs. It's actually figuring out how to use the tool on multiple activities in the context of the safety certification. And sometimes people will just consider that that tool can be used in this box for this activity, but in fact, when you consider the other surrounding activities, that same tool, in the case of TIS Analyzer, that same tool can apply and solve a number of other activities at the same time, or at least part of them.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you, Roland. And we just have another question. Can you share some practical strategies or best practices for integrating TrustInSoft Analyzer into existing development pipelines? And how can we ensure minimum disruption during this integration?
Um, so that's a good question, and it really depends on the customer process. So at the basis, and in the ideal situation, what you do is you would first insert a parallel verification reusing some existing tests, but quickly you'll find out that those existing tests are not thorough, exhaustive enough. So you can make generalized testing, and gradually you can create more tests for interface testing and include that in your CI, in your daily or weekly CI. Depending on the amount of analysis to make, you can run them daily. We have customers who actually require that all that this analyzer is used before every merge request as a rule, and that at least there is no regression. Some other customers will do a parallel CI where they run it every other day, and when something happens, they need to investigate it urgently. We have other customers who make an even more light approach and just take the cybersecurity audit way. So instead of including the tool within their development phase, they do it late in the game and just verify before shipping that there are indeed no issues. But of course, you gain less from this approach compared to including in the development phase. The extreme case is, again, an even lighter way, um, which is actually what my team does for several customers, which is to do an external audit of your code. In this case, our analysts will create analysis drivers to be able to verify your application and make sure that there are no unintended behavior. This is usually done at the end of the development cycle or near the end, so that we can verify that we don't verify that your code is functional in the way that you define it. We try to find undefined behaviors. We try to find illegal behaviors in a way. So again, just to finish and repeat that in reverse, you can take the light approach to say that you want to do just a cybersecurity style audit externally or internally, but where you will benefit the most is when it is closer to the bottom of the V cycle that I was showing before. Okay.
That's clear. Thank you for that, Roland. We can maybe wait for a couple more minutes to see if there are any more questions.
Okay, so during that time, I'll take the opportunity to point out what I'm sharing at the bottom. You can always contact us on the email address contact@trustinsoft.com, or go to our website and the contact link. We'll be happy to talk to you.
I think if there are no more questions, then maybe we can conclude today's webinar. So Roland, thank you very much for that
Thank you.
in-depth presentation and for answering all the questions. I think you were very clear and you added a lot of value and cleared a lot of points. And in case you have any additional questions, then you can feel free to contact us on any of the links that are available on your screen. Thank
Thank
you
you
and
very
have a
much.
nice afternoon. Thank you.